Okay.
So we're recording now.
I'll shoot. Are we going now?
Yeah, we're recording. Okay.
All right. Chapter 1, I think if you had to paraphrase it, which almost doesn't do it justice, is that 4% of all the money in the world is actually only in physical form. 96% of it is just value that we give to it that is constantly fluctuating. And that's not just money. It's all sorts of things, property, values of homes, land, even the value of money itself, like gold, fluctuates constantly. And that once you realize that money is just a shadow or of an echo of what people believe it to be worth, then you can start becoming aware of wealth consciousness. And as your wealth consciousness increases, you can find ways to discover how to draw more of it to you because you're more conscious of it.
I love that. You must be a school teacher. That was awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
The short version.
Cool. Then how about where he says how to read and understand the book?
The how to read and understand the book was to kind of like take it all in at first and let it just kind of wash over you, and then go back and repeatedly revisit chapters that resonate with you. Also kind of putting it on an audiobook, like in the background when you're cooking dinner or even if you're sleeping or whatnot, because a lot of this, Gandhi's really into the subconscious. As you'll find out later in the book, the subconscious is really the root source of a lot of our belief systems, and our consciousness is the one that kind of says, okay, well, that's real or that's not, but your subconscious doesn't determine what's real or not. It has no clue with when you're dreaming if that's real, or if you're doing it in real life, that's real. And he highly recommends absorbing a lot of this subconsciously at night or when you're focused on something else.
Right. He does say to let it repeat while you're doing something, listening to it, and that will ingrain it in your head. So he's basically preaching a belief system. And so I wanted to touch on that, especially for the guys who I'm bringing in to introduce them to this book. Some of the beliefs in here are contradictory to the Islamic faith. So keep that in mind when you're reading this. It is an eye-opener, okay? He does mention this, as I consider a blasphemous statement, that we are co-creators with God. But since I don't believe that, per se, but I do believe that, yeah, you do have to think before you can get something that you want. Before you can, quote, quote, manifest it in the universe or whatever, you have to kind of be able to visualize it. And that's totally true. That doesn't mean that you're, a partner with the creator. But definitely just wanted to throw that out there because I, don't want anyone to say I'm preaching blasphemy. Okay?
Understood. Good point. And a lot of it is, this is where it gets crazy to me, is rooted in quantum physics. I did not expect this book to be about quantum physics. I literally thought it was going to be about finances and like economic tactics and stuff. And it's entirely based on these concepts of the quantum physics science that's being revealed and understood. And some cultures have known this for a long time through states of meditation. But I love the fact that when he's going through these, there's scientific evidence that he presents for all of it. So even though it is a belief system, there's a lot of evidence, again, rooted in the quantum physics world, which is hard to prove in and of itself. So, I guess you could say quantum physics is a belief system, but it is rooted in some pretty heavy science. So yeah, I ate it up. I was like, oh man, this is crazy. Like, what?
Excellent segue.
And so yeah, I agree with what Ahmed said, that there are some things in there where personally as an individual someone might not agree with, but then there's a lot of scientific stuff which he has provided the scientific evidence. And then also I think you should take the book with a grain of salt, and your takeaway should not be things which are probably blasphemous or against your faith, but the takeaway should be how you can use this for success or to be wealthy in life. Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to promote myself. I did a review on this book on my blog, www.sunnylifemedia.com.
Put it in the chat.
I missed it. I didn't know, or maybe we should start.
She wrote it it's a blog post, so you can read it.
It's a blog on my blog. It's 5 books a new entrepreneur should read.
Can you type it up in the chat, Sunny?
Yes.
Cool.
Promotion.
No, awesome. Her blog is pretty good. So, let's talk about the quantum physics. Basically, can I touch on that? Because it's fresh in my mind.
Fire away.
So he goes off and says, okay, our body is made up of tissues. Our tissues are made up of cells. Our cells are made up of atoms. Our atoms are made up of subatomic particles. Oh. And our subatomic particles, he goes, they're made of. No, they're not made of. They are energy, right? Yep. And he goes and talks about how energy, they're energy, and they're like in a wave form, and then they're in like a observable form when we observe them and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, the fact of the matter is, technically, that's true. I am a bunch of energy. How Einstein came up with the equation that energy is equal to, mass times the speed of light squared, right? How many joules you have. And so it's kind of like, if you bring it all down to the basic level, we're all the same. I mean, this computer that I'm looking at right now is the same thing. It's basically energy. Same thing. Like the sound waves that I'm making when I resonate my vocal cords. It's the same thing. It's energy. It's just different forms. It's formed differently,
I think you call it quantum packets.
Yeah.
Quantum packet.
Absolutely. So if you think about that, it's like, whoa, you can probably control some of that stuff, by starting with thinking about it and then focusing on it and then just making sure that you do what you're supposed to do to make whatever you want become manifested in this world. I mean, you do have some level of control.
One of the parts in that chapter that resonated with me the most was when they hooked the Olympic athletes up to those sensors, and they had them like go through the slalom course or the luge course or whatever with just in their mind. And they actually physically did it, and the sensors couldn't tell the difference. Like, the brain doesn't know whether your body's physically doing it or whether you're just doing it in your mind. So yeah. I love that. I was like, dude, I think Olympic athlete I've ever talked to, visualization before they get on the course or whatever is a huge, huge element of it. And same thing with like astronauts when they're doing all these, simulations and stuff. They run through these things in their heads over and over. That part was like a big, wow, that's totally legit. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also seen scientific experiment where you are supposed to just like think about working out, and you'll actually see hormonal changes, and you'll see like your muscles, like as if you had actually worked out. Now that's like an incentive. That's like an incentive for all of us to just like, let's just sit here and think that we're like pumping iron, and let's see our muscles just getting bigger.
It's my kind of workout right now.
Absolutely. Drink some lemonade and think about working out. Oh, I'm getting tired. Absolutely. New workout plan.
Hang on. I'm checking the comments here real quick. I didn't want to skip over those. Let's see. Argon is the molecule which connects us all, from the I Am document.
I always thought argon was an element on the periodic table. Like, isn't that a gas or something?
Wendy posted that. Wendy, are you available?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. And it is an element. It's not a molecule. I've realized after.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, this is exactly what the documentary talks about. well, it's written by Tom Shadyac, who was the director of like all the Jim Carrey movies, Dumb and Dumber. I'm not sure, maybe not Dumb and Dumber, but a few of them anyway. And he had a bike accident and spent some time like going through a depression anyway. Completely changed his outlook on life and what everything meant to him. He sold all of his material possessions and started making documentaries on things that were more important in life, kind of thing. But it ties in with the idea of Argon and how and basically how we're all connected. And there's experiments in there as well in the documentary that shows when people are hooked up to a I can't remember what the name of the machine was called, but they're hooked up to it. And there's also it's also hooked up to just like a gel substance. I can't quite remember. It's been a few years since I watched the documentary. But the gel or whatever it was reacted the same way the person reacted. You know, and completely like a non-human substance kind of thing, right? And and even from, I think, in different parts of the world, when people were shown, again, I'm vague on it all now, but anyway, it just shows how people in different parts of the world react similarly when they're shown or when they're experiencing the same sort of type of experience or something like that. But anyway, it's kind of neat. It's all tying in with the same thing you guys are talking about here. It's a really interesting documentary. It used to be on Netflix, but it's not there the last time I looked. It must be taken down.
I just want to say, from a logistical perspective, I have about 10 more minutes before this Zoom is going to end. So it's going to end like a little bit early. I said it's from 8 to 8:45, but actually I started a little bit early. And I forgot that therefore I'm limiting it to close early, because I only have like 45 minutes for a free Zoom. And maybe later we can, whoa, somebody's writing all over the screen. How are they doing that? I'm the one sharing the screen. Anyway.
That's you, buddy.
No, I'm not touching my keyboard or the mouse. But anyway, yeah, so if anyone has the upgraded Zoom, we could use that in the future. Or maybe I can see if MJ will let us use his. But no big deal. I mean, we're doing fine. We're making good time. I think in the next 10 minutes we can get up to chapter 6, right? If we are not already there.
I don't think we'll get quite that far, but still, I know a lot of people, and myself included, when I got to this far in the book, in this part of the book, I was like, what does quantum physics have to do with entrepreneurship? But I think where he went with it, I'm going to, again, paraphrase drastically here. When it comes down to the quantum physics, when what Wendy was just talking about, how different substances react the same, and how we've basically come to understand on a scientific level that everything is made up of energy, that it's also can be manipulated with thought. For example, scientists have to do like double-blind experiments because just the action of looking for a result changes the result they're looking for. So with that thought process in mind, that's how you apply it to entrepreneurship. So if the whole reason you're in entrepreneurship is to be successful, why not take the concept of being successful and make that what you're looking for? Because that's how like electrons in cellular structures behave. They're kind of in all places at one time. Sometimes they're in two places at the same time. They can just, it's a really weird thing like to wrap your head around, but it's pretty, I mean, I believe that it's true because it just seems right. And that's where it comes into your wealth consciousness. So when you're applying this with your wealth consciousness, you're taking these rules and laws of the universe and applying them with your thoughts, so deeply in your subconscious as well. And that's where it comes into believing. When you believe that you are wealth, when you believe that you have abundance, when you believe that you have joy, on a energetic level, you're putting that out there. And by the laws of nature and physics and law of attraction, that's what you're going to get back. That's like a real gross simplification of that, but that's how my brain kind of processed it.
Yeah, he talks about how there are simultaneous multi-dimensions that you kind of choose which one you live in, whereas other people can kind of choose which ones they live in at the same time. And he's like, oh, and this is totally possible for God. God can do whatever he wants. So, okay. I mean, it's talking about, where the particles can take different shapes and make up different objects at different times based on your observation, and your thought about what you're going to observe also affects the results. So it's, from a scientific perspective, I mean, he has some points made there, but I think what we need to take away from that is, like you said, you are what you focus on, simply put, and then he talks about, if you allow that, we can go into the next topic, the truth about time, that it doesn't exist as you say it does. It's kind of like, as he said, that many religions talk about that you already have been given everything that you want. Just ask and you shall receive, or whatever. And in this case, it's like he goes, there is no time except now. The past and the future don't really exist. It's just now. And so if you want to be a multi-billionaire, they don't say, I hope I'll become one. Be like, I am one.
I am one.
Yeah. He says, you're not really lying to yourself. And it's that if you truly believe. And so this is also kind of like what I had heard from one of the first times I had heard of this stuff is from that guy, Cameron. He is Keala's partner in AWOL. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. I can't remember his last name. Cameron George, maybe? I can't remember. But
yes.
he was talking about how you have to kind of like believe first, and then you have to act like that what you believe before you can become that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's the opposite of I'll believe it when I see it. It's
right
when you believe.
You'll end up seeing it if you believe it hard enough, and
Yes.
because if you believe it hard enough, you're gonna effectively make it come true. And I can tell you, before I even got into this business, before I even heard about all this stuff of law of attraction, that I had seen that in my own personal life. So anytime I was like, okay, I want to increase my salary, I want to go and get married, I want to go and do a trip, it all started with like, I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it. It's done. I've made it happen in my head. So it's a matter of time, or a matter of time doesn't exist, but it's just a matter of me taking those action steps to make it happen, and they all happened by the grace of God, of course.
Of course. One of the things that I thought was really cool about that is with the goals. I went back through and did all of my goals in the present tense. Instead of saying, I want to visit this place, I want to meet this person, I want to own this thing, I want to do that. I went back, and just the simple act of writing them like that, I could feel something. It felt weird at first. I was like, I'm lying to myself. But then it's like, am I? Because what happens in a year from now when I look at that and half of those are true, I'm no longer lying to myself at that point. And if a year from now is just a matter of time, then and there's only now, then it's not really a lie, or it's not really an untruth. It's just that I haven't experienced it yet. It doesn't mean that it's not true, which I love. And that, just those subtle little shifts have been like really fun to play with and try and practice. I encourage everybody to do that, even if it's just like 10 of your goals.
Absolutely. And with that, I'm going to ask us if we can take it to a close, because I have a little warning says less than a minute left.
All right.
So I think that was good, though, right? I mean, we're almost at like 8:40, and I didn't want this to be a whole hour, actually. But next time I'll start right on time if I don't have anyone else's Zoom. So it's my Zoom or anyone else's who doesn't have a greater one. But thank you guys for coming. Let's see if we can take some of those and implement them. And we'll talk about that next time. Okay?
Awesome. Thanks,
cool.
Everybody. Sorry for the interrupting. Write your goals
Thanks,
in present.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.